American fighter jets are about to start flying into Canadian airspace more often, not because of a threat, not because of an emergency, but because the United States just told Canada that if they don't buy 88 American-made F-35 fighter jets, the entire North American defense system gets rewritten. And here's the part that should terrify you. This isn't a negotiation anymore. This is an ultimatum. I'm sitting here looking at what just came out, and I need to walk you through this because what's happening between the United States and Canada right now is unlike anything I've seen in modern North American relations. The US ambassador to Canada just went on record saying that if Canada backs out of their F-35 deal, NORAD would have to be altered. Those were his exact words, altered. But here's where it gets complicated. Canada isn't just reconsidering this deal because they feel like it. They're reconsidering it because what was supposed to cost them $19 billion has now exploded to $27.7 billion. That's a 46% increase, almost half more than what they originally agreed to pay. And that's not even including the additional $5.5 billion they'll need just to make these jets operational. We're talking about a deal that's hemorrhaging money before a single aircraft has even landed on Canadian soil. So what did the ambassador say? He said, if Canada doesn't move forward with the purchase, the United States would likely need to buy more F-35s for its own air force and fly them more frequently into Canadian airspace to address threats approaching the US. His quote was, if Canada is no longer going to provide that capability, then we have to fill those gaps. Think about what that means for a second. The US is essentially saying, you either buy our jets or we're coming into your airspace anyway. This is your ally, your closest trading partner, your neighbor, and they're talking about unilaterally operating in your sovereign airspace if you don't comply with a weapons purchase. And then this happened. Canada started looking at alternatives. Specifically, they've been talking to Sweden about purchasing Gripen fighter jets instead. Sweden's defense contractor Saab has offered Canada a deal that would bring 12 E-600 aerospace manufacturing jobs to the country. That's actual industrial capacity. That's economic benefit. That's what Canada wanted from the F-35 deal in the first place, but never got. Wait, it gets worse. The ambassador didn't just say NORAD would be altered. He went further. He called the Swedish Gripen an inferior product that's not as interchangeable, not as interoperable as the F-35. He's basically saying our jet or nothing. And if you choose something else, we're still going to have to rethink the entire defense arrangement between our countries. Now, what I'm about to show you changes the whole picture. This isn't happening in a vacuum. This is happening while the current administration has been openly talking about making Canada the 51st state, while tariffs are being threatened, while bilateral relations are at their lowest point in decades. One defense expert I'm looking at here said the ambassador's comments amount to public sniping that only benefits adversaries and risks undermining shared deterrence. Here's what nobody's talking about. NORAD is a decades-old partnership that was established in 1957. It allows the closest aircraft to respond to threats, regardless of which country it belongs to. It's been one of the most successful bilateral defense agreements in history, and now it's being used as leverage in a fighter jet sale. The infrastructure isn't even ready. Canada won't have the facilities to house these jets until 2031. But the first aircraft are supposed to arrive in Canada in 2028. So where do they go? They sit. They wait. Meanwhile, the costs keep climbing. Every year of delay adds hundreds of millions of dollars to the price tag. Let me show you how we got here. Because this story goes deeper than just a fighter jet purchase gone wrong. This is about a country that's been trapped in a procurement nightmare for over a decade. And now they're being told the only way out is to pay billions more than they agreed to. Reports are coming in that Canada first committed to this F-35 program way back in 2010. The original price $9 billion for 65 jets. Then it became 14.7 billion, then 19 billion, then 25 billion. Now we're at 27.7 billion for 88 jets. And that still doesn't include everything they need. The Auditor General's report that just came out says they used outdated data from 2019 instead of accurate 2022 figures when they made their cost estimates. So they knew the numbers were wrong, and they moved forward anyway. But that's not even the real story. The real story is what happens when you try to back out, because Canada isn't just buying fighter jets. They're buying into a system that includes software, maintenance, spare parts, training, infrastructure. And all of that is controlled by the United States. If there's a political fallout, if relations deteriorate further, the US could weaponize that control. They could block access to spare parts. They could cut off software updates. They could ground Canada's entire fighter fleet with the push of a button. This is the part that kept me up last night. Sweden is offering Canada the Gripen, which several NATO allies already use. It works in Arctic conditions. It's cheaper. It comes with significant industrial benefits. But the ambassador is saying it's inferior. Why? Because it's not American. Because it doesn't integrate seamlessly with US systems. Because it gives Canada independence. Sources are now confirming that Canada has already paid for 16 F-35s. 4 of them are already in production. 8 more have money down on parts. So even if Canada wanted to walk away completely, they're locked in for at least those 16 jets. But here's the question. What do you do with 16 F-35s in a fleet that's supposed to have 88? You can't maintain operational capability with that number. You can't defend your airspace. You can't meet your NATO commitments. And then there's the jobs question. The F-35 program is estimated to create over 150,000 jobs over its lifetime, adding $16.9 billion to GDP. The total economic impact is projected at around $72 billion. But here's what they don't tell you. Those numbers assume Canada buys all 88 jets and stays in the program for decades. If they scale back, those projections evaporate. Now, what I'm about to show you changes everything about how we should be thinking about this. Canada's industry minister went on record saying we didn't get enough when it comes to the F-35. She's planning to meet with Lockheed Martin executives to demand greater economic benefits. She's using the Swedish offer as leverage. She's trying to renegotiate a deal that's already been signed. The latest information shows that the first 8 F-35s are supposed to be delivered to Luke Air Force Base in Arizona between 2026 and 2027 for pilot training. Then the rest would come to Canada starting in 2028 with final delivery in 2032. But if the infrastructure isn't ready until 2031, where do the jets that arrive in 2028, 2029 and 2030 go? What do you do with multi-million-dollar fighter jets that you can't house, can't maintain, and can't operate? Here's where it gets even more complicated. The Auditor General's report warned that construction of fighter squadron facilities in Cold Lake, Alberta, and Bagotville, Quebec, is already behind schedule by more than 3 years. 3 years, and every year of delay adds approximately $400 million to the cost. 2 years of slippage, $700 million. Documents reveal that Canada also has a pilot shortage. They don't have enough qualified pilots to operate these jets, even if they arrive on time. The shortage was first identified in a 2018 report, and it still hasn't been resolved. So Canada is being pressured to spend tens of billions on fighter jets. They won't be able to fly at facilities that don't exist yet under a defense agreement that's being threatened. But that's not the end of it. The US has been clear about what happens if Canada chooses a different path. More American jets in Canadian airspace, more frequent operations, a fundamental rethinking of how continental defense works. The ambassador said the US would have to figure out how we're going to replace that capability. Translation: we're coming in whether you like it or not. This is where the story takes a turn that I don't think anyone saw coming. Because what we're really talking about here isn't just about fighter jets or defense spending or cost overruns. We're talking about what happens when a country's sovereignty becomes negotiable. What we're learning is that Canada is caught in an impossible position. If they buy the F-35s, they're committing to a $27.7 billion program that could easily balloon further. They're accepting dependency on American technology and American goodwill for the next 40 years. They're betting that relations won't deteriorate to the point where that dependency becomes a weapon against them. But if they don't buy the F-35s, they're being told their airspace will be filled with American jets anyway. Their voice in continental defense gets diminished. Their NATO commitments become questionable. And the largest military power in the world starts operating more freely in their territory. Now, here's what nobody's talking about. One of Canada's top analytical voices on NORAD just came out and said something remarkable. She said public sniping only benefits our adversaries and risks undermining the credibility of our shared deterrence. She's the director of the Centre for Defence and Security Studies at the University of Manitoba. She understands how this works, and she's warning that what the ambassador is doing is dangerous. Think about what she's saying. When an American ambassador publicly pressures a close ally over a weapons purchase, who benefits? Russia benefits. China benefits. Anyone who wants to see cracks in Western defense cooperation benefits, because it shows that the alliance isn't based on partnership. It's based on compliance. Here's the reality that nobody wants to admit. NORAD was created during the Cold War to defend North America against Soviet bombers. It was a partnership of equals. Both countries contributed. Both countries benefited. Both countries had a say. But what we're seeing now is a fundamental shift in that relationship. The US is saying, "You do what we tell you, or we do it ourselves." Officials are now saying that the entire review of the F-35 purchase will be completed sometime in the coming months. But here's what I'm not hearing. What are Canada's actual alternatives? If they can't buy the Gripen without the US threatening to alter NORAD, if they can't back out of the F-35 without American jets flooding their airspace, what choice do they actually have? This is the part that kept me up. The ambassador was asked directly whether he recognized the political implications of Canada choosing the F-35 when many Canadians now see the United States itself as a threat. His response: "That's crazy. We're not a threat." But are they? When you threaten to alter a 70-year defense agreement over a weapons sale, is that not a threat? When you say, "You'll fly more jets into another country's airspace if they don't comply with your demands," is that partnership or coercion? The latest information coming out shows that Canada has other concerns beyond just the money. There are questions about whether the F-35 can even operate effectively in Arctic conditions. The Green has been tested in Swedish Arctic environments. It's proven the F-35 hasn't faced the same level of Arctic operational testing, so Canada might be paying more for something that works worse in the environment where they actually need it. Documents reveal another issue that almost nobody is discussing. The F-35 stealth technology requires special facilities, special maintenance, special security clearances. Canada has to build entire secure facilities just to work on these jets. That's part of where the extra $5.5 billion goes. But with the Green, those requirements are significantly reduced. The operational costs are lower, the maintenance is simpler, the logistics are easier. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sources are confirming that Sweden isn't just offering jets. They're offering a complete industrial partnership, assembly in Canada, technology transfer, jobs, real economic benefits that stay in Canada instead of flowing back to American contractors. That's what Canada has been asking for from Lockheed Martin. That's what they haven't gotten. Reports are coming in that multiple NATO allies are flying the Gripen right now. Czech Republic, Hungary, Thailand, Brazil. It's a capable aircraft. It's not as advanced as the F-35 in some areas, but it's also a fraction of the cost. And most importantly, it doesn't come with political strings attached. Sweden isn't threatening to alter defense agreements if you choose a different jet. Wait, it gets worse. The entire conversation around this deal has been poisoned by the broader political context. When an administration is talking about annexation, about making a sovereign country a state, about tariffs and economic warfare, how do you make a multi-dead defense procurement decision? How do you trust that partnership will hold when the rhetoric is this aggressive? So where does this actually go from here? Because I've been looking at this from every angle, and I'm not seeing a good outcome for Canada, no matter which way they turn. Let's game this out. Scenario 1. Canada buys all 88 F-35s. They commit $27.7 billion, probably more by the time everything is delivered. They accept dependency on American systems. They hope relations improve. They hope costs don't escalate further. They hope the infrastructure gets built in time. They hope they can train enough pilots. That's a lot of hoping. Scenario 2. Canada buys some F-35s and supplements with Gripens, split the order, hedge their bets. But now they're operating two different fighter types, which means two different maintenance systems, two different training programs, two different supply chains. The operational complexity explodes. The costs might actually be higher than just buying one type. Scenario 3. Canada commits to just the 16 F-35s they've already paid for and buys Gripens for the rest. This is what Sweden is pushing for, but the American ambassador has made it clear that would require altering NORAD. What does that actually mean in practice? Does the US take operational control of Canadian airspace? Do they station American jets on Canadian soil? Do they bypass Canadian decision-making in continental defense? Scenario 4. Canada tries to delay further, keeps reviewing, keeps negotiating, but every month of delay adds millions to the cost. Every year of delay adds hundreds of millions, and the pressure from the US only intensifies. Meanwhile, Canada's existing CF-18s are aging out. They're becoming unsafe to fly. The window for decision-making is closing. What we're learning is that this isn't really about fighter jets at all. This is about what kind of relationship Canada has with the United States moving forward. Is it a partnership where both sides have agency and sovereignty, or is it a hierarchy where one side dictates and the other complies? Sources are now confirming that defense experts on both sides of the border are worried about what this means for the broader alliance structure. If the US can pressure Canada this way over a fighter jet purchase, what happens with other procurement decisions? What happens with other policy areas? Where does the pressure stop? The latest information shows that Canada's current government was elected partly on a promise to reduce reliance on the United States. They wanted more independence. They wanted to diversify relationships. They wanted to not be in exactly this position. But the first major test of that promise is this F-35 decision, and all the options involve either compliance or confrontation. Here's what I keep coming back to. The ambassador said NORAD's mission doesn't change based on political disputes. But what he's doing is inherently political. He's using defense policy to pressure a procurement decision.